Welcome to Behind the Build. I'm your host, Jonathan Jacobs, and today on the program, I have a friend of mine who I have known now for almost 6 years. She has an incredible design practice that runs out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, managing projects from renovations and decorating projects to new builds, and additionally to that, some vacation homes for her clients. Today I have on with me Gillian Gillies of Gillian Gillies Interiors.
Hello. It has almost been 6 years, eh?
Yeah.
When you started that, I thought, how long have I known Jonathan?
Yeah.
And how did we meet?
So
and
I
remember.
I started at Walden. I'm almost at 7 years. I'm a couple months away from 7 years.
Wow.
And as a part of that, I've discussed this with some, as a part of that beginning was just like cold calling every single interior designer and architect that exists in the city of Toronto. And there are a lot of them.
Yes. And that's how we met. And I just remember laughing my head off on the phone with you and thinking, oh my God, who is this person?
What is wrong with this man?
This random man phones. And I've just been laughing my head off for the last 45 minutes. So, yes. So that's how it started.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, that's just kind of who I am. And I'm stuck with myself. It's terrible. Thank you for enduring.
You're welcome.
And also, I mean, thanks for taking the time out of your day. I know that you run a busy practice and you have deadlines that you are trying to hit for clients. And so I appreciate you coming to the north side of Eglinton.
I know. It was all of like a 5-minute drive. So yes, from the studio. So yeah. Yeah.
I feel like if I take a shot of adrenaline and I throw a football, I could hit your office from my house.
Probably could. I know. It is. Yeah. It's amazing actually how many people are in this similar little pocket.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's such a good, it's a great pocket because you're very close to the DVP and you can get everywhere in the city. We're all sort of East Enders.
Yeah. Well, so I generally ask a wide range of questions to people, and Gillian kind of asked me, how does this start?
But I have listened to some of the podcasts before. I did do my homework.
To which I responded, listen, Gillian, just buckle up.
And there aren't any buckles on the chairs.
No.
So I just want you to see.
No, but thankfully they're comfortable.
Yeah, comfortable.
I assembled them myself, and I didn't have any leftover parts when I was done. So that means that they should last.
You tell me. Okay.
So Gillian, you've been running your practice now for, I know this specifically because I just RSVP'd to the event, for 20 years.
I know.
Right?
I know.
20 years.
20 years.
20 years of interior design. So first of all, I will say
Toronto,
to you,
yeah.
Congratulations to that. Oh, in Toronto.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to get to what that means, because that would mean that there was more.
You can tell because I say Toronto.
Yes.
I pronounce the T at the end of Toronto, which means I'm not from Toronto.
No, yes. But so 20 years of your practice in the city. And so I will go to where I generally go, and that is what led you to Toronto, because you're not from here.
No.
So where did you grow up? Where were you born?
Edinburgh. So just on the outskirts of Edinburgh.
Yep.
And how old was I? I was 32 years old. Went on a vacation to St. Lucia one very dreek sort of February, and bumped into a lovely Canadian, and he was in St. Lucia. It was one of those serendipitous moments because I was there because, at that point, it was very early internet. So I'd gone to see my travel agent who'd booked the trip for me. I didn't even have a cell phone on this trip. It seems like crazy. Anyhow.
How did we live?
I know. I had gone, my travel agent had said, oh, this place is amazing. There's no single supplements. And as female traveling on your own, you'll be fabulous. Meanwhile, he was there. He had a good work friend, who had booked to go on a holiday with 2 other couples. And then her and her husband had split up just before the trip. And so she'd said to Dean, look, will you just have you got time? Could you come on this trip? And we'll get single beds in the room. And he was like, sure. So he was there for that reason, at a sort of last minute entry. And then I was there. And so we bumped into each other one morning on a morning walk. At like
this Canadian that you met in St. Lucia is Dean?
It's Dean.
Okay, so we'll go.
Oh, sorry. I know I tell very long stories.
No.
So
this
yes,
is the whole purpose.
So that was back in 2002. That was 2002. I moved here. That was February of 2002.
Okay.
I moved here in the December of 2002. And we've just had our 20th or our 21st. No, it must be our 21st. Our 21st wedding anniversary. So yeah.
So just to I'm going to piece that together for anyone so Dean, who you met in St. Lucia, is your husband. That Canadian that you bumped into.
Canadian that I bumped into.
That was a last minute addition to a trip.
Yes.
As the man that you have been with for as many years as you have.
Yeah, I know.
Fantastic.
And I'm not the kind of girl who sort of flies by the seat of her pants.
Oh, really?
Well, you know me. Like I'm not. Like I'm very
shocking.
I'm very structured. So when this happened, it was very interesting, the reactions from different people in my life back then. I think your girlfriends really know you, and they're just like, this is so not you, but so you. So we're just thinking, this is fine. So just go with it. And then, so that's how that happened. So I moved here December 2002. I eventually got all my papers and everything. So I was legally allowed to work by the summer of 2004. Yeah. And then opened up my design studio in September of 2004, hence the 20-year anniversary this year.
So just out of curiosity, had you been practicing interior design?
Yeah, I was a partner in a design firm back there. We had, I'd worked in a larger interior design firm. Yeah. I think there's sort of 6 designers. And there was also a construction division. Okay. And that was really where I found my love of renovating, because there was a team I worked in Glasgow. This was in a studio in Glasgow. And it was phenomenal to be able to just have that division right in the same office as you. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the designers there really didn't like construction, where I was like, oh my God, I love this. Right. So I worked there for 4 or 5 years, and then was approached to start a company. So there was 3 of us in this company, and I approached to start that, and then I headed up the interior design department. We had a construction department, and then the person who had the idea in the first place, he ran his own commercial and hospitality design firm. Got it. So we ran out of, at that point, again, you didn't have an online presence. Right. This is like, it sounds crazy, but this is sort of like mid to late 90s. So you had to have a storefront. So we had a very small but 2-story studio. So the bottom floor was more sort of like a gift shop. So it was great. We'd go to Paris, go to the shows, buy beautiful stock. And then upstairs was the design studio, right, which was sort of set up like a living room. And clients would come in, they could see from that what you could do. Right. I feel like I'm really date stamping myself here. That was how you did. Like, people really had to see what you did. Yeah. And even going back then, like, you didn't have freelance designers. Right. So when it was actually on my first trip to Toronto after I met Dean, he took me to, he obviously had plans way ahead of me having them. But like, one of our first dates here was he took me to Designers Walk. So I could sort of see, where the showrooms, and I was like, okay. So it's very different, and that most designers were freelance. So I think we sort of came to the conclusion fairly quickly that I would set up my own studio, and for the longest time worked out of home. Mm-hmm. And until, home became more of an office that then also had our that we also slept in. The tipping point just became too great.
Yeah.
Where you've got sort of receiving and warehousing in your dining room, and it's just getting a bit of a pickle.
I was going to say, what's the, I can't think of the term for it. What do you use? Like a hot, not a hot plate. Is it? What do you,
Hot plate. Yes. Yeah. For cooking.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, instead of like buying hot plates, you're just using like tile samples.
I know you are like, it was crazy. And then the search began for a space, and I knew I would invest a lot in how the space looked.
Right.
And it would make no financial sense to rent something and to invest that amount of money in it. So then the search started in about 2016, 2017 for our studio, and I had quite strict parameters in that it had to be ground floor, there had to be an abundance of parking. Those two things probably took 2 years to find. But then I did, and now you've been to my studio, which is in a small development of 19 office condos, and I moved into there in the November of 2019.
5 years.
5 years. I know. I can't believe it's been 5 years. And I remember, so that was November of 2019, and then around March of 2020.
This was a bad idea.
And I'm like, good job, Gillian. You've waited all this time, and now you're here all by yourself. But it very quickly, as again, we all know, we had that, I think if we'd known we were going to have that pause for the 8-10 weeks that it was until sort of May, when then I think anybody who worked in design or construction then just felt like they were getting shot out of a cannon on a daily basis, but like an hourly basis, then it just went Looney Tunes. And of course it was the best thing ever to then have that space. So yes, as I say, everything happens for a reason. You just sometimes don't know.
Yeah, and you definitely when some of those big sweeping changes happen in the career, and you're like, what do I do? How is this going to play into it? How am I supposed to navigate this? And then all of a sudden it starts to make sense. And the next could be a couple hours. Sometimes it could be a couple weeks, months.
And I've learned you just have to let go.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you start to grip and try to hold on to what was, when it's so obvious that things are shifting dramatically, like you just have to let go and go, okay, so where are we going now? And where is this going to take? Because if you do, I do a lot of yoga, and it's one of the things, one of my favorite teachers always talks about, this need we have to grip and control, and how it really rarely ever serves us, like you want to manage outcomes. I want my clients to be delighted. Yeah. I want the highest level of finish. Yeah. And I can grip and control my way through that with maybe sometimes people who if I'm having to grip and control that much, then it's probably the first and last time I will have that experience with them. Yeah. And so I think and especially in this industry, and you must feel the same thing, like every day is a learning curve. Every day I'll come across something and I will not know the answer to it. And I'm very, I teach my team this. You have to be able to say, I don't know, but let me find out. Because the pace, technology is changing in this industry. Like it's incredible. And I invest a lot of time, go to multiple design shows. I'm a member of the Design Leadership Network. I'm constantly learning, but it's a lot. It is. It's
and you bear the we talk about this a lot, and you bear the weight of each individual client's needs, their budgets, decisions that we need as a builder. And there's just like there's a lot of information spiraling around inside of your head
all the time for everything. So
I could see how some mindfulness and yoga would probably help quiet that down.
Yes. And not like, so I have that for myself, but I'm always also very conscious of the studio and how that feels for my team.
Yes.
And we talk a lot to our clients about this philosophy that we have of frictionless living, which really just living with ease. And I think so many of us have things that just irk us and wear us down, and we don't know how much they're wearing us down until we reach that breaking point. And it can just be something as seemingly simple as a dripping faucet, but you tune into that drip, and you can't let it go.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot to our clients about frictionless living and what that looks like to them, what that feels like to them. But I'm also very conscious of the studio and the environment that I want my team to come into every day. So everybody has, different home lives, different schedules. Sometimes you can get to work in the morning feeling like you've done an 8-hour shift already, whereas traffic hasn't been your friend. And I want them to come in the door and just to be able to take a deep exhale. We have our own essential oil scent that diffuses in the studio 24/7. And I love them just to come in and to be able to exhale and just breathe.
I was going to reference that there's the fragrance that you have in the studio that provides that feeling.
Is designed to ground you. And so I want that for them. We all have quite different tastes in music. I can cope with Taylor Swift so much, but sometimes I'm like, okay, ladies, that's enough. And so we all have our bit, but it has to feel good. It has to look good, not just on the surface, but also I can't talk to my clients about frictionless living if when we go to get a sample, we pull out a drawer and it's just horrendous trying to find anything because everything's such a pickle.
Not organized. Yeah, where the staff aren't like a symbiotic machine. Machine actually is too strong of a word.
But you want people, I want my team to be able to find things with ease, whether it's a digital file in Dropbox or whether it's a client sample. Like we've spent a lot of time honing all of this in-house so that everybody can lay their hands on. And obviously within that team, people have their own specialities and
so tell me what is that? So because we've taken some time here to talk about the team, and I know that to you the internal culture that you create is such an important element of what you provide both to your clients but also to each other. It is essential that you're all working really well together, and everybody might have different musical tastes, but everybody understands the purpose they serve in making the business as amazing as it can be.
Yeah.
So what are the roles that you have?
So I always say to the team, I have a small team, so there's 6 plus myself.
Yeah. I
always say if you have a seat at the table, you have a voice at the table. Because we are the size we are, everybody needs to do their bit, and everybody is, and we're all responsible to each other. So on the design side, there are 3. So senior designer, junior designer, and design assistant. And then I have my studio manager, my procurement / bookkeeper, and then my marketing manager. So 5 work on client projects and 1 works alongside me on updating our website. I write monthly newsletter, which I source all the imagery for, but Christina puts it all together and makes it look beautiful. We've just launched a quarterly magazine that actually everybody in the team works on that. So that's been good fun for them. But that's how we sort of divide and conquer our roles. And then everybody has a primary role, a primary job description in the firm, but they also have a secondary role so that when somebody is off on vacation, then their job is getting handled whilst they're away so that people can go off with ease. Because again, I don't want my senior designers just being off. And she's been away for just over 2 weeks. And it was her I was talking to in the car. So she phoned me. She's just back. And I'm like, look, just don't look at your inbox. Everything is well. And I said, because I'm nervous she's going to start at the bottom and start like answering emails and everything's already been taken care of.
Right.
I said, look, there's nothing that I said, we kept on trying to say to people to stop CCing you, but I think you still got CC'd on a lot of stuff. And so, you want people to go away, take their time off, recharge, and then come back, but not come back to an absolute
chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's horrible.
Yeah.
we all deserve our time away.
Yeah, it almost makes you not want to take the vacation because you know that when you come back, you're going to be hit with more.
So that's so it's cultivating that with everybody and and it's interesting when you have team members come who've worked in different environments, getting them used to this, that, we're there. And I mean, I don't think any of my team are best friends outside of work.
Do you need them to be?
No,
right.
And that's what I mean. But within those four walls, they're all there for a common purpose,
right? And
everybody knows what everybody's role is,
right? And they celebrate each other's abilities, because it makes the other person, do their job that much better, that much more efficiently.
Yeah, and if someone's having a bad day or someone's overwhelmed with stuff, it's like, okay, like, don't you answer the phones today, you just do you, or so it's lovely.
What you've just alluded to, though, is actually probably, I think, the first time anyone's ever really called that out as a general practice as for staff, and that their secondary role is to fulfill the requirements of one of the others that they work with. It's a very interesting concept to implement, because it really does make you feel, and I say you, the general you, as a coworker, it makes you feel valued in knowing that, like, you can fill the shoes of the other person and they can go get their recharge, and when it's your turn, you're going to get what you need too. That is a really profound way of looking at running a business model.
But I think it's what, like, ultimately, I want my clients to feel really cared for.
Right.
And I think a lot of times they possibly don't know how much they've been cared for, or all the little things we think about, until they move into their finished space. And sometimes it can be on the day, or it can be a couple of weeks later, where they're like, okay, like, you've thought of everything. So you can't give all to your clients if you're not being sustained as well. And so I feel it is part of my job as running my studio, that for the 8+ hours a day with people are in my studio, are in my care, then they too should feel cared for whilst doing their job. And I think that's why, like, I don't have any turnover.
Yeah, so let's talk about that.
So that's,
because we chatted a little bit about that over lunch.
Yeah.
So 20 years into running your practice, you told me that you've only had 2 people that didn't work out.
And it was very quickly, it was known within like 2 weeks.
Right.
And the first time it happened, I had just been so desperate. I mean, advertising for staff is one of the, I'm trying to think of the word. I mean, it's just, it can be
monotonous.
It's soul destroying.
Exhausting.
Like when you have to advertise, it.
I mean.
Yeah, Jonathan's just fallen down. He's now lying down. But it's true. It is the most soul crushing experience, because you put out an ad. Nobody reads it.
And you've spent so much time on the description
to make sure. And I even put, like, at the end, I'm like, reply with a cover letter and a edited portfolio. Like, do not apply for a role at an interior design firm, and the first thing in your portfolio is, a hospital wing followed by a multi-story car park. Like it just, like, apply for.
Well, there are elements of the finished concrete from the carport that might apply.
Don't get me started. So I would say hiring, that it is not so much hiring stuff, but just putting out that job posting is a lot.
I mean, can I tell you something on this?
Sure.
So one of the things that we implemented a couple of years ago was some actual form of, like, automation
Right.
associated to the hiring process
Right.
to weed out all of that garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Because realistically, there are people out there that are looking for a job.
Mm-hmm.
And this is terrible to say, but if some people are collecting EI, they've got to show that they're applying for jobs.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't help us
No.
at all.
No.
But by creating some level of an automation to the applications, then it gets rid of a lot of those, oh man, I'm drawing a blank on the word, but on the non-qualified applicants.
Yeah. And I do that. So we say you've got to reply with a cover letter and a portfolio that's no longer than X amount of pages.
Right.
And I would say 90% of the applicants, and I'll use that word very loosely, 90% of the applicants rarely have a cover letter.
Right.
So then it just doesn't get open. You're done.
Yeah.
So I do that. But as I say, it is quite a thing.
Yes.
Some of my best hires have just been people who've just sent me a resume like out of the blue. And I've gone, I didn't think I needed you, but maybe I do need you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, okay, this person just is going to fit in with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, and I do, I had my one mishire. I was so desperate for someone to fill the role, and I needed somebody. We were short-staffed, and I was assured they could do what I needed them to do.
Assured by who? By them or
by them? By them. And it was like, and it was like,
subtlety.
you can't see my
no one listening right now can see the subtlety of how Gillian's head tilted about 6 degrees to the side, but the eyes did about a 90.
And then you're just like, you can only fake so much, and then you're just like, look, this just is, it's hot. It's like, it's horrible. You're just like, you can't do this job. And then another person had come from a background, sort of hospitality commercial into residential. And I think residential design sometimes gets a bad rap, or it's looked down on as being the easiest one of the 3 disciplines. And anybody who's worked in residential design will know it's a tough, like,
it's all emotion based.
It's all emotion based.
Yeah.
And it's so different. So if you don't have that space to give, or that capacity to know, okay, I'm like, you're in people's homes, then that, and thankfully this person did a couple of weeks and was just like, I can't do this. Yeah. And I said, okay, that's fine.
Thank you for being honest.
Thank you for being honest. No, and then it's fine.
Yeah.
So yes, I think hire slow and steady. And
so we understand, the operation, the people that are involved in it, understand when you started it. But in terms of some of the projects that you've worked on over the years, what did it look like early on? I'm assuming, like many, it was renovations and kitchens and bathrooms.
Early on, I started work in, as I say, the fall of 2004.
Yeah.
I think I probably got my first meaningful, like, full home renovation in the spring of 2007.
Okay.
So
it took a couple of years.
To get there. From like a standing start, not knowing anybody.
Yeah.
And I got this project, lovely, really, really nice couple. And that project probably went on for probably about a year and a half. And then from that, I would say I got a referral from them for a similar size project almost every year for 10 years.
What?
And it was so that, and then from there it grew. So my business now is currently sort of our businesses tend to be just over 90% either repeat or referral business. We do now get, as I say, about 10% of clients who find us online. Mm-hmm. But the majority are repeat or referral. Incredible. And then within that, I would say over 85% are lawyers. So that just seems to be my sweet spot. But having this.
Wait a second. Hold on. So if you're listening to this and you're a lawyer,
yes,
and you're going to renovate or you're going to build new, you might not know it yet. But you're going to meet Gillian.
I seem to talk. I seem to talk the same. No, it's just I'm always sort of like, oh, and you're a lot.
Are you speaking at like bar conventions?
No, I know I should be. I don't know how. I think maybe just the first few clients were lawyers, and then and it's funny because even sometimes clients will hire me, and then we'll be in the meeting for an interview. Yeah. And then they'll maybe mention where they work. I'll be like, and then the penny will drop with them. They'll be like, you didn't do so-and-so's house. And I'll be like, yeah. Oh, okay. Now we know. And so there's always, I mean, forever how many people there are in Toronto, there's, it's
a big city, but a small city.
It is a very small city.
What I will say to that though, too, is that one of the my father was a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And one of the subtleties to working in that community, surprisingly, is keeping things very secret about who people are and what they are. Mm. And so if it's the prospective client that is name dropping the person that you may or may not have worked with, at that point you can say yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You throw their name out first and you're likely never going to work with that person.
Exactly. Yeah. I know. And that's a huge part of is also what we do. We spoke about this earlier. I say, we become, and it's exactly the same in your role, we become our client's trusted advisor. Mm-hmm. We may be the people, depending on who they come to first. Some clients hire the architect first. They might come to, yourselves first, come look for their designer first. Mm-hmm. But whoever that first person is, the client will generally say, okay, well, do you know a good architect? And so you tend to be responsible for that. So even if you have brought sort of everybody to the table and everybody on the project, I think our role is still to remain very neutral. Well, neutral is wrong, but I mean, we're there to advocate for our client. Mm-hmm. And even if, this may be one project with that client, and I might have worked with you 10 times before and the architect 5 times before, but in that project, it is irrelevant because you're there advocating and working for this person. Yep. And it's retaining that and having that trust with someone that is critical. And you do have to become a vault. And I explain this to my team as one of the first things when I bring someone new on. It's like nobody's names are mentioned outside these 4 walls. Mm-hmm. Like nothing is spoken about. You can go home to your family and say, oh God, I had a really tough day. We've got a project and blah, blah, blah. But you're not sitting in a restaurant naming names. Yes. And that is like paramount, mm-hmm. And so well, that's if you want to have a long, illustrious career doing what you're doing. If you're looking at just like kind of cashing out and doing it quick, you want to run into your design practice for a year. I know, but I think that's just what people don't understand. I agree. There's certain subtleties that are just lost. That are completely lost. Yep. And in this age of oversharing and, social media is it's a beast and a monster, and we all feed it. Yeah. Yep. And but there's also something very lovely about just being discreet. Yes. And not oversharing. Well, it's interesting because you talk about, you become the curator and the protector of the client. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because I'm going to use an example from this morning that I just dealt with prior to you coming over. And, we've been working with a supplier for a long time. Client I've known for a very long time as well. Mm-hmm. We did a renovation in their home, and there were elements that needed to get rectified, and it's very, very, very small. Mm-hmm. To the point where it's generally going to be the client that notices it, but mm-hmm. the client's living in the house. Mm-hmm. And it can be a nuisance for the supplier that we work with to rectify this issue. Right, yeah. And we work with them all the time. Mm-hmm. And I said to them, look, we love working together. Mm-hmm. I need you to send a crew over to get this resolved. Mm-hmm. It's been in front of them for a long time. Mm-hmm. It's driving them nuts. Mm-hmm. Send someone over.
and let's get this fixed and let's put this whole thing to bed and let's show the client the kind of service that we can put out there. They were there this morning, and I'm sorry to digress on this, but literally it's a couple beads of caulking in a bathroom. And I said to them, they ripped out the caulking fresh that they had just done. They ripped it out and did it 4 times. Because I told them I was not satisfied with the way that the caulking bead was looking. Because when you're in the bathroom and you're taking a shower, that's what you're looking at.
Yeah, I know.
Get it out. Protect the client.
And it's exhausting. And but it's also, I would say, that is the time when you realize who you're working with. Yeah. And what can be soul destroying is if you have worked with someone on numerous things and it's all been swimming, it's all been good, everything's going great. Yeah. And then you have something where you have a hiccup and you're like, this will be no problem. And you just are like, okay, so that obviously needs fixed. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, you're not going to step up. You're not fixing. How? Oh, okay. So this is who I've been working with.
You've been making money on these projects for this long, and this is when you have the opportunity to actually show how much of a professional you are.
And that is, I'm always, because mistakes happen.
Yeah.
Things go wrong. It is part of life.
But it's also part of construction.
It's also part of construction. But it's how those things are rectified. And I'm constantly amazed at again. So I'm always sort of like, okay, well, now we know. Okay. And sometimes, we'll just arrange, we'll get it fixed. And then I never fall out with anybody, but I just will never work with them again.
But you also talk about that experience.
I'll talk about that experience, but I'm not going behind someone's back, I'm not one of the persons. I just don't talk of them.
No, you might not look. You might not talk about the specifics of who the company are, or but you might talk about the experience of what that was.
Yes.
And when someone also says to you, "Do you have a name for referral?" That name is not going out.
No, absolutely.
Right.
Not.
So I say all of this because it is an industry where it is very easy. It's very easy to communicate, but communication is also where so many people fail in this industry. I mean, that's also, I guess, and condensing it down to this industry, it's the general public generally can fail at communication.
The world.
Yeah, the world. I wanted to ask you about your design aesthetic. Is there a specific aesthetic that you are keen on focusing on, or is there a specific, maybe not aesthetic, but practice that you're looking to implement at this stage of your practice and the time that you have had an ability to continue to learn? What are you trying to put forth at this stage? It's a robust question.
It is a bit. I could think, okay, how long have we got? So 2 things. I believe our homes should be able to comfort and nurture us when we need to be comforted and nurtured. But our homes should also be the places where we can celebrate and have big belly laughs and giggles. So I always want to understand from my clients what their needs are, because ultimately when I leave them, I want their home to be the one that is supporting them. So there's always going to be that comfortable corner where you can just sit down and read a book or take a quiet phone call away from the hustle and bustle of everything else that's going on. I think if we could all wake up in a space where we've been able to have a good night's sleep, we would all be far kinder, better functioning humans. So we have I want to say a detailed questionnaire, but when clients first sign on with us, I will ask them a lot of seemingly random, sometimes competing questions. And it is amazing from that, the answers that I will get that will then allow me to ask other questions, which then they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that's what's been bugging. That's what I want. And so we've really got to take that time. This is not answering your question. to find out really what makes them tick so that ultimately we leave them with what they want. Now, in terms of aesthetics, so once I have that anchored down, I'd say most of the clients come to us. I mean, I'm originally from Edinburgh, so I have more of that British/European aesthetic. I love color, saturated color. I don't want you to walk into a space and feel violated with so much color, but I do tend to like color, and our spaces are always layered. We don't tend to do houses that just look good, but no one's actually using the rooms. So most of our clients have pets, have children or grandchildren. Their spaces get used and they want to use them and enjoy them and not be terrified of somebody sitting on the sofa.
Right.
And so I think that's, and it was interesting, I think during COVID when everybody was stuck at home and we're having to use all the rooms in their home, the amount of inquiries we got where people were just sort of saying, oh my God, your rooms look like we could actually live in them and they look comfortable. And so
that's a nice compliment.
It's lovely.
Right?
Because I generally don't do the showpiece rooms that you're going to walk past and look and admire. I do things where people are immersed in the spaces. And I love nothing more than going back and seeing, you know, the accent cushions a bit crushed and crumpled and the throw on the floor, and just knowing that people are actually using them, as opposed to if I go in and everything's perfection, I'm sort of like, God, are you guys happy? Are you comfortable in here? You know? So that's, I would say, our aesthetic, and it's what people are coming to us for. So no one's going to come with, it's funny when reps come, most of them are, you know, once they've been a couple of times, they know our aesthetic. And like we just don't have, like all our fabric samples are arranged by color, you know, and we don't have like a gray bin of gray color samples because they just don't. Yeah, it's just not.
They're not going in the house.
It's just not going in the house.
No, I mean, pick someone else.
Pick someone. And so that's what yeah.
Okay. So I actually now feel far less like I offended you when you walked through the front door of my house today. Oh. So I was generally trying to clean up, and it was just like one of those, like, nope, it's not going to be able to happen today. And
very lovely lunch with your daughter and her friend.
I was not expecting any of that, nonetheless. Yeah, generally, I mean, just for everyone to understand, generally I would invite people over and we have lunch and it's quiet and there's no one here. And my daughter just came back. This is going to air later, but my daughter had just come back and she and a friend joined us as a part of a play date for lunch.
We've had a gymnastic display in the garden while we've been sitting trying to do
talk
this
about Gillian Gillies Interiors
with our straight faces on, and I'm like, wow, you're really bendy. So yes, it's yeah. But we kept it together, Jonathan.
You know, I mean, frictionless living.
Frictionless living. It's it.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna actually, and I haven't said it yet. And when you said it to me before, I wanted to do it, but you were describing it. If you're listening to this right now, like truly take a second, and this is gonna sound silly, but I'm gonna say it and then I'm gonna pause. Think about what that term would mean, frictionless living. Because if you think about that, almost everything that happens in our day creates some form of friction.
It does.
No matter how much you try.
No, there's always. And so if you're able to come home and just not walk in the door and be like, oh, for goodness sake, you know, like that's another question I always say to my clients is like, you know your people. I don't know your people. So tell me about your people. So when we first meet with clients and they've maybe got inspiration images and I'm looking at these images and I'm thinking, okay. And then I start to...
I'm thinking,
okay, but I'm just thinking...
Don't know if this is going to work.
These people have no stuff and you have a lot of stuff. And so when you start to talk through that, and then I can start to see them going, oh, God. So it's like, know your people. Okay, so are your family members, are they now going to come in through, mudroom door? Is everybody going to put everything away every day? Is this how it's? And then you can see that realization.
Yeah.
Or if we design it like this, is that just going to put even more work on you
pressure.
and cause more friction and more pressure in order to maintain this? Because this looks good when it looks like this. It's not going to look like this otherwise. So how do we make this? Because unless you're going to reprogram your entire family who've lived quite happily this way, this is not going to deliver for you what it should do.
Right.
So what is it you need from this?
Yeah, you might really like, sorry, go ahead.
No, but that's the essence of why have they come to us? Because it's never about, oh, I need a new kitchen, or it's always something bigger than that. And it can be, well, I want to entertain, but also, I'm really fed up that only I know where everything goes in the kitchen because it's like a Jenga puzzle, and therefore nobody even attempts to get anything. Mm-hmm. So I want to do an addition, want to double the size, but I just want it really easy so that everybody can be in there and it's not just me. And then you're like, okay, so how do we make that happen? And then you're rooting in people's cupboards and trying to figure out where all the stuff goes.
Right.
But it's learning, and it's asking those questions, and it's so much more than just designing a kitchen that looks great, but then has no function for what that particular family
needs.
Where's the spatula? I know. I had a family once very early on who were big breakfast cereal eaters. And so they had, we put into their kitchen island, like these 2 huge drawers that were scaled to take big cereal boxes.
Yeah. Like the jumbo boxes?
Oh, the jumbo. And that was, and she was like, this is perfection.
Yeah.
Everybody can find what they want. They can see it. It's at their eyes. So it's things like that I need to extrapolate from people. And sometimes it can be something that somebody will just be like, but does that matter? And it's
right.
Like, yeah, that matters, because that's every morning in your house. You don't want somebody having to pull out 6 boxes in order to get the box that they want of cereal.
Yeah.
So what's going to work for you?
Mm-hmm.
Do you wish you had a cereal drawer?
Well, we have one.
You do.
Oh, and that was, I'm actually absorbing this because I'm thinking about how my wife is going to feel when she comes back from her business trip and what the house looks like. And is it going to be frictionless? Is there going to be friction?
Is there going to be friction? I know.
I'm sorry, Wendy. I tried my best.
Gillian said this was okay because this shows this house has been well loved.
Well, look,
there's time. We'll be finished quick. You can fly around there.
No, it's okay. Don't worry. Sure.
All good.
It's the place is actually not as bad. Okay, so we've talked about projects, like in some ways an onboarding and a curation for being able to understand and how to develop a program for a client. We talked about the client experience. We've talked about the staffing. We've talked about early stage of the career. We've talked about how you met Dean. We went right into that, which was amazing because I'd never heard that story from you before.
I know.
What we have not talked about is you as a person outside of practice. Mm-hmm. And among many of the things that I know about you, I know that you love to go on hikes.
Yes.
So I'd like to tap into that. But before I do, I want to say this. While we were having lunch, you talked before during our discussion now on this episode about music in the office, and everybody's got different musical tastes. So at lunch today, I put on some music, and Gillian, one of my favorite bands of all time, a couple of my favorite bands, U2, and then NXS came on, and the song "Beautiful Girl" came on by NXS, and I was saying how Michael Hutchison's voice is just amazing, and you used a word to describe it that will stick with me for the rest of my life. It was so perfect. And I know that this is not entirely about hiking, but it just, you also described a story about his daughter and his death and all the rest of it, but you described his voice as caramel. And I have to say it on this because it was such an appropriate way to describe it, which makes me think that when the clients you're dealing with are going through whatever their feels are, you can get inside the head and be able to find and pull and extract words to be able to shoot back to them about what they're actually looking for. So I just have to say that. I don't know. There's a roundabout way of saying it. Nonetheless, hikes.
Hikes, yeah. But I would say, like, I love writing.
Yeah.
Like I write a monthly newsletter.
Yeah.
We now do a quarterly magazine.
Yeah.
There will be a book, and it will probably be a heavy writing. It'll be more text probably than imagery. I love
Not in gray.
I love to read.
Yeah.
I love to write.
Yeah.
And I think I think it's just using words that are unexpected. So when you talk about someone's voice, but it being like caramel, it makes absolute perfect sense. And so I do use words like that because I think in some ways it's just using words. Sometimes it can be hard to articulate. I'm struggling to articulate this, but to articulate what it is that somebody likes about something or dislikes about something. And so, I'll maybe say, look, is this wallpaper? Is it just too bossy? And they'll be like, it is it's too bossy. It's like, okay. But it's just, so it's almost just giving people words to help them try and explain what we do. So we got into this from hiking, and I'm not quite sure. So
because I don't know. I was describing music.
You were describing music and caramel.
And I know. I just. Yeah,
Okay.
So have you ever been to Carmel?
No, I haven't. But I do like my downtime.
Yep.
And I do love to go. We try and get out for a good hike, either on a Saturday or a Sunday. Just get out of the city and into nature. And it just always makes me feel better.
Yeah.
And it comes back to what I was saying earlier about my team, in that I can't be working at 100% and giving the best of me if I am not filled up and happy either, So having downtime away from work, just being able to disengage from my phone completely is really, really critical. And just having those boundaries, that separation. If it's during working hours, I am all there all the time. But when it's not, I'm not. I need to decompress and have my time away.
Yeah. I can appreciate that. I mean, that behind me, that paddle, and behind you, I have all those pictures of Algonquin Park because of that same requirement. I need to get into a space where you don't have cell coverage.
And where you just, like, I actually love being on a plane. And I mean, it's kind of sad to me now that you can now get text messages on a plane.
Yeah.
But I do just love that total switch off from the outside world. And we're so engaged all of the time that I think it's really healthy for us just to go. And I mean, I'm looking at, your daughter and her friend, they're back outside doing Olympics again in the garden. But just to have some down playtime. Yeah. It's so healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. We all need it. And there's something to be said about being in the outdoors and being able to take in the fresh air and not be fully immersed in the stress. And because it's stressful. It's in delivering for a client. It's hard. It's hard. It requires a concerted effort, and being able to establish what you value, both from the professional standpoint, but then also figuring out how do you get out of that and now immerse yourself in a different experience to go and set yourself free.
Yep, exactly. Because if you're going to perform at your best, if you're in a situation at work where you need to find a solution out of thin air, you can't do that if you're running on empty.
Yes.
And it's not like every day I'm not like an emergency service, it's not hearts and livers, but there are a lot of times where out of the blue, it'll be like, okay, Gillian, we've come across this, or, we weren't expecting this in the wall, or we've now had to put a big HVAC duct here. And what do you need to do with it? Because the guys are here.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, you've really got to be able to think on your feet all the time.
Yeah, what is actually one of the hardest parts of doing a podcast, actually, to be honest, is just for the time that I do this, generally my phone's off unless I get the odd message that somehow breaks through or doing a DND. Mm-hmm. And you're wondering, like, is something burning right now?
I know. Wow.
It's the life we chose, but it's also, it's very rewarding at the end when people move in and they say to you, like you said before, you thought of everything, you've executed on everything. I mean, we're really happy with that, and that leads to a 90% referral business. Right?
Which is lovely. It is really nice, and there's nothing nicer than being asked back. So yeah, I'm very, very blessed and just very happy that I went on a trip one day and now called Toronto home. So yeah, that's the.
I mean, I would say that from my standpoint, from a professional standpoint, I appreciate the fact that you took that trip. It's been it's been a pleasure knowing you over the last few years, and I've always appreciated what you've brought forward. You as an individual, I think that you are a great, now 20 years in, but a great addition to the talent that we have in the city of Toronto. And I know that the majority of people that are graduating in the field of law probably appreciate what you bring.
We will see.
Gillian, thank you. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. I know we've worked together on some projects, and we look forward to working with you again in the future. You are fantastic, and thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. Thank you we had a lovely lunch, and what you don't know is we've had like the Olympics going on outside here all the time. So now we're going to go and cheer on the gymnastics squad that are playing in the garden. We've had a few moments and a few off cuts because there's been wee faces pressed up against the glass here, but it's all been good. So thank you.
Thank you.